It's all up to the jury now. Deliberations in the Michael Jackson trial have finally
begun. Arrived here about 45 minutes ago. They've been deliberating now for the past 35 minutes.
12 hours, 45 minutes and counting. The jury's been deliberating almost 24 hours. Still no verdict, but it is
less than 1 hour. We are supposed to find out the fate of
the jury has reached a verdict in that Santa Maria courthouse.
And now the jury in the Michael Jackson case has reached a verdict within the hour.
To eat crow later, but I'm going to go out there guilty on the molestation counts. Everything else after that, gravy for the top. I'm saying a guilty verdict. And I will eat crow if they don't get this guy on
Michael
something. I absolutely think they're going to convict on child molestation. I think there's going to be a conviction on the molestation, Kimmy.
I think you're right, and we may be having crow pies again.
They're going to turn here and then take a right into the courthouse, and they have 4 SUVs. Presumably a good portion of the Jackson family will be with Michael Jackson as he steps out and walks in to hear his fate.
What's so crazy about this is I don't remember this day at all. Like June 13th, right? So I definitely would have been out of school by this time. This would have been freshman year, high school, so I wouldn't be going to sophomore year. But I don't remember like watching this at all. Like I don't know if I wasn't watching the news during this time in 05. So I probably was watching ESPN or whatever, like, so I don't remember this at all, which is shocking because you would think a Michael Jackson verdict case, like, I would have been on it, but I don't remember this day at all. Like, I remember the aftermath, like, after, like, maybe the next day, like, oh yeah, Michael Jackson got off. I'm like, well, of course he got off. Like, I was so arrogant, like, of course he got off. Like, I didn't believe he was on it. Like, so, that's just so funny, like, I don't remember this day at all. Like, I can only imagine how anxious and nervous this guy was, man. Look at his face, yeah. Look at his face. Like, he is so
of the courtroom clerk reading the verdicts. It's coming in now momentarily. We go there live.
And now the courtroom.
Count 1, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy. Count 2, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child. Count 3, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child. Count 4, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of lewd act upon a minor child. Count 5, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child. Count 6, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a minor child.
That's crazy.
Count 7, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist. Count 7, verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21. Count 8, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission. Count 8, verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21. Count 9, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent. Count 9, verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages. Count 10, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent. Count 10, verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21.
Michael Jackson not guilty of child molestation. Michael Jackson not guilty of handing alcohol to a minor. Michael Jackson not guilty on every single count.
Not guilty on all 10 counts.
I just wish I could go back in time and see all the news people that were just so convinced that he was going to get a guilty verdict, just to see their initial reaction. I wish I could go back in time and just watch that. Oh, that would have been. I wish I could have got that on. Well, we had DVDs by 05, right? Record that on like a DVD or something, just DVR or something, just rewind it and just look at all of their faces. Yeah, I'm just so sad that Michael had to go through that, bro. Like, I'm not even like relieved. I'm just like very saddened that Michael had to go through that, because after this is what really causes the spiral from here on out. Like Michael was done with America after this. He didn't trust nobody in America anymore, especially the media. He was done. He went overseas, and then he lost a lot of money during this case. He lost, he never returned to Neverland after this. Like, it just caused an immense chain reaction of bad events. So I'm happy that he got off, but it's just like, it just puts me into a space where it's just like, man, if just people will be human and be kind and not be greedy, because Michael did not deserve this, man. Like, it just...
Michael Jackson now officially not guilty.
マイケル・ジャクソン被告の裁判で
And 14 times, a total of 14.
Not guilty on all counts.
Not guilty on all counts.
Not guilty of child molestation.
He is not guilty. 10 times he's not guilty. So look
The accuser's mother could not be believed, and her kids who accused Jackson of child molestation could not be trusted either.
We saw these witnesses. For the most part, they were horrific witnesses, in my opinion.
Tom Stennon did not have a case, and yet he prosecuted Michael Jackson. Had it been anyone else, Michael Jackson or that other person would not have been a court.
I can't say there was anything that convinced me to say guilty, ever.
The evidence in the case, they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing.
This was a setup. It never would have been brought if it was in any other county. Tom Stennon has had this grudge for 13 years.
This piece of garbage called The People versus Michael Jackson to a grand jury. It was presented and the state paid the price.
There was nothing in that closet that was able to convince any of us of the alleged crime.
I went in there with the courage to convict a celebrity because I really believe in doing what's right. And witness after witness, I was more convinced of the innocence.
The non-African American jury. Right. No one can look back and say that this was another O.J. racially motivated verdict.
This is a jury in a very, very conservative part.
I was just about to say that, like, bro. I was about to say, dog. The fact that jury of his peers, just... Hey, shout out to all the jurors in this case, bro. Like, y'all the real ones. Y'all real ones for real. Cause it's just like, bro. That's what I also hate. Like, jury on my peer. What made them jury on my peer? No, never mind. I'm not gonna get into it. But yeah, shout out to the jurors, man.
California, a jury that, by all markings, look like a pro-prosecution jury. And if this jury had no doubt, none of us should have any doubt whatsoever.
Thank God Michael is vindicated for all time. Now maybe people will leave him alone.
Michael Jackson walks away a free man, acquitted on all counts.
An important day in Michael Jackson's life. He hugged his mother, he hugged his father, he gave all of his brothers and sisters a kiss, and he saw his children, who are the most important thing in the world.
He started to cry more and more with each not guilty. There were more tears. At one point, he even put both hands to his eyes to stop the flow. The other lawyer for Michael Jackson lost it. When she lost it, I lost it, because she was so, throughout the whole trial, she would look at the witnesses, not move. She would just stare at them the whole time. She never slept. And she was always so alert and everything. And then to see, my gosh, her emotions just come pouring out, that was just,
He looked over at us. In fact, I made eye contact with him when the last part of the verdict was read. And he kind of just mouthed. He didn't openly say it, but he just kind of like said, you know.
And there were some tears.
Yeah, he was crying. Yeah, he was crying.
Here he is. Michael Jackson is walking out of the courtroom right now. We see him. There's a little bit of a smile there. I suppose he's as stunned as a lot of other people are, surrounded by his father and his sister and other family members walking out. No visible emotion there, Jeffrey. Did you see some visible emotion on his face?
Not at that moment. He did look stunned and exhausted.
Like, bro, I wish we could like put that on the moon or something, Michael. On behalf of mankind, we sorry, bro. Like, golly, man. It's like, we sorry, dog. We don't know what's wrong with these humans, dog, but we sorry, bro.
In addition to 70 sheriffs who went out to get Michael, the amount of evidence we had in this case was bigger than any huge federal case you can even get. And for us, handling Michael's case was handling like 100 cases all at once.
Sending 70 sheriffs to raid Michael Jackson's home in a search. It was putting more experts, more sheriffs, and more investigators on this case than they do with serial killers.
Replay this back if there's a not guilty verdict, and you can all have the last laugh, and I will eat crow. I may have to eat crow later.
We may be having crow pie together.
Well, I'm having a crow sandwich right now. It doesn't taste very good. And for everybody that's been watching the case, as we go to break, I'm having a little crow sandwich on the set tonight, and it's not going to taste good.
Are you sure? Are you sure that this gigantically renowned guy walking in a room had no influence at all?
Even after the acquittal, the media didn't accept the not guilty verdict, and went on to accuse jurors of being biased starstruck fans. It's conceivable as to why they never accepted the verdict, as their dream of a billion-dollar industry had crumbled and came crashing down. Jackson's acquittal was their loss. And even after a clear not guilty verdict, their propaganda against the vindicated man never saw an end, which continues even to this day. Media analyst Tim Rattle said, "So what happened when Jackson was acquitted on all counts? Red faces, second thoughts, a little soul-searching perhaps, maybe one expression of regret for the rush to judgment? Nah, the reaction instead was rage, liberally laced with contempt, and the odd puzzled expression, its targets were the jurors." On Fox News, Wendy Murphy labeled Jackson the Teflon molester, and that the jurors needed an IQ test. She further added, "I really think it's the celebrity factor, not the evidence. I don't think the jurors even understood how influenced they were by who Michael Jackson is. They basically put targets on the back of all, especially highly vulnerable kids that will now come into Michael Jackson's life." Lauren Cayley went particularly low. "Don't forget the kids still at risk, Jacko's own." She called Jackson a sad sick loser, who uses his fame and money to dazzle the parents of children he takes a shine to. The Washington Post commented, "An acquittal doesn't clear his name, it only muddies the water." Both the New York Post and New York Daily News ran with the snide headlines. "Boy oh boy." Diane Diamond said, "He walked out of court a free man, not guilty on all counts, but Michael Jackson is so much more than free. He now has carte blanche to live his life any way he wants, with whomever he wants, because who would ever try to prosecute Michael Jackson now?" According to Nancy Grace, Jackson was not guilty by reason of celebrity. In the British newspaper The Sun, Jane Moore said, "If the jury agree that Janet Arvizo is a bad mum, and she is, how did they let Jackson off?" She added, "Michael Jackson is innocent, justice has been done, or so the Looney Tunes gathered outside the courthouse would have us believe." She went on to question the jurors' mental capacity and dismiss the American legal system as half-baked. Some even went to greater extent to discuss his race and openly make a mockery out of it. Racist journalist Tucker Carlson says, "Which race? He spent 20 years trying to be whiter, gets indicted, all of a sudden he's black with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton." Another one says, "He had a jury of his peers, middle-aged white women." Remember, majority of these news channels were liberal channels, who presented themselves as vocal advocates for black people, but their inner racists couldn't hold back when it came to Michael Jackson.
After he was exonerated, everybody just went on to the next story. It was like Natalie Holloway was the next story. It was like, oh, okay, he got exonerated. And the next story is, Holloway is missing in Aruba. Wait, so no one's going to say anything about why he was exonerated or whether it was true? Or
when they came out and said innocent, 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 a lot of people were disappointed.
Media was disappointed.
Yeah, because that wasn't the story they wanted to run.
I think a lot of people in the media were very embarrassed and humiliated by the acquittals. They were predicting that he would be convicted. They were almost salivating about him being hauled off to jail. The build-up to his being sentenced to state prison would have been big ratings for them. And I think when he was completely exonerated with 14 not guilties, I think they were just embarrassed. I don't think they quite knew what to do.
No one said, "Oh my goodness, we're sorry. We reported all the wrong things. Let's make the record straight now." No. In fact, they ignored the not guilty verdicts, and the paparazzi went right into, "Oh, we think he might have molested another boy," or, "Wow, somebody else came out of the woodwork."
The media worldwide were out to get Michael Jackson. The money was in a conviction. Berry Gordy, who founded Motown, told me after the acquittals that you cost the worldwide media billions by those not guilty verdicts, because the kind of copy that his being convicted, remanded to jail, the build-up to a sentencing, which would have been the biggest sentencing in world history, was something they wanted. You know, this was big, big business. They were doing everything they could to spin a conviction.
The trial was ludicrous, and the fact that the media wouldn't let up and that the public never saw the truth. Oh, that was told, oh, a positive book about Michael Jackson? No, we don't want it. You want to write a pro-Jackson book? No, we're not doing it.
An innocent man. The $4 million trial is over, and Michael Jackson is free.
All accounts, back home at Neverland, a free man tonight. Michael Jackson is not just free on bail, Michael Jackson is free.
Jackson will be walking out of this courtroom a free man.
Free man, fully vindicated.
Jackson is a free man.
Surely he was free, but did he really survive? Little did the media know, or report, that Jackson was brought to the hospital immediately after the verdict was read. Everyone who followed the trial saw what a horrifying toll it took on Jackson's physical and emotional health. He was skewered alive by everyone, for their own greedy reasons. The media treated Jackson like a prop in a sideshow act. They didn't care about him, his children, his family, his friends. They knew the Arvizos were full of shit. But they didn't care. They could report the facts, but they simply refused to do so. Same one said that Jackson's deteriorated health was an act, and that he would moonwalk out on the acquittal. But the truth is, he never really coped up with the trauma.
What toll do you believe that trial took on Michael?
I think it killed him. I think the trial killed him. You could see him shrinking during the trial physically. When it was over, he called me. And he finally called me after it was all over to thank me for being fair to him, because nobody else was. They all were out to get him in one way or another. And I said to him, Michael, how was the trial for you? And he said it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And that was true. Michael was a very sensitive and gentle soul. And he was not up to this. He became ill over and over again.
As the trial got closer and closer, he became more paranoid, more frightened. I mean, it is a frightening prospect when every time you turn on the television, think about it, someone is saying you're going to go to jail for 20 or 30 years and good riddance, and he's sick and he's a pervert and all the rest of it. I would often be with him and watch with my own eyes when he would retreat into a fetal position. He would crunch himself up in the corner of a couch. He would be in a room. This is not when the children were around, obviously. He would be in a room where the blinds were drawn and no sunlight was coming in. And he would cover his ears in the way children sometimes do when they don't want to hear a parent tell them they can do it or can't do it or something. And I found the only way to, when he behaved like that, was to be a parent and to be stern with him and tell him, you know, you've got to man up here.
I mean, if you put all these accusations together, they were saying he was a monster. And you take an extraordinarily sensitive, gifted, vulnerable person like that and make him sit there 5 days a week for 5 months, not to mention the stressful build-up to the trial, where the media coverage was terrible. And you know, every day he knows if these strangers choose to believe the prosecutors and the police, you know, I'm probably going to die in a California state prison. You know, as we all know, on verdict day, he just looked horrible. He looked like his cheeks were sunken in, that, you know, he hadn't slept for days. He looked very, very haggard and paralyzed with fear. He was exhausted. He was just, he had trouble even walking.
This was a trial that, in essence, was a life and death situation for Michael Jackson, something from which he may never have recovered. And in fact, let's face it, he didn't recover. He died trying. He died trying. He was split. The trial broke his spirit.
The dozens of agencies investigating him left no stone unturned. While the press bullied him, tormented him, and dehumanized him pitilessly. Being arrested, being handcuffed high on his arms, dislocating his shoulder, locking him in a toilet full of feces, being publicly shamed, and his mugshot slapped on every newspaper. This was the treatment the most famous person on this planet received. He was verbally, mentally, and physically abused. Yet some people think he got a lesser punishment. Yet some believe that a black man in America, accused of molestation, investigated by dozens of agencies, racist hateful police and DAs, brutally prosecuted, His accuser, testifying with an all-white conservative jury, somehow got away with decades of molestation. They did everything possible to get this man behind bars. Yet people think he got off easy. Thinking he got off for being so powerful and rich, yet he couldn't buy off the media. The FBI released files in 2016 that proved even further of his innocence.
Michael Jackson was one of the most famous people on the planet. It turns out he was also the target of intensive FBI scrutiny.
It was just one of the revelations from newly released FBI files.
Very interesting, Robin, in all of these pages, hundreds of pages, many, many hours of investigation, going to the Philippines, going to Chicago, going all over the country. There's not one scrap of evidence that Michael Jackson ever harmed a child, did anything wrong, committed any crime. It's almost a vindication when you look at this. The FBI looked at all of these matters and said, there's nothing here, and I think that's the most startling thing which I've seen.
Jackson brought many people so much joy, but in his case, clearly fame had a darker side.
Some people say the most famous person next to Jesus, that's how he was treated. That's how he was treated. It's like, man, I'm sure Michael was like, man, why? Why me? Like, you could tell it really did break his spirit. You could tell. You could tell. Like, it was like, man, even with a not guilty verdict, it's just like, how can I trust anybody again? I don't ever want to tour again. Like, I don't want to do anything. Like, why would I ever want to give this country anything of me ever again? Neverland is not even a home anymore. Like, it's just, man.
For 15 years, Michael Jackson was literally the most police investigated person of the 20th century. Over 100 police from LAPD, NYPD, Santa Barbara PD, FBI, DA, Sheriff's Department, all had him under a microscope. He was the most bullied person in history. Bullied by the police, bullied by the media, bullied by the public, bullied by lawyers, bullied by ex-employers, bullied by ex-friends, bullied by music labels and more. And yet he still saw the goodness in the world. Even though he was acquitted on all counts, but the allegations broke him from within. The trial had left him so devastated that he visited Neverland never again. That's what they wanted, and they sadly succeeded. He left America and went on to live in Bahrain for years. His own country had put him down from all possible ways.
He went to the Persian Gulf for a time and became more reclusive and more suspicious.
Is he going to come back to working?
I don't think so, except maybe in Europe.
You don't think he'll ever live in the United States again?
Well, really, why should he? He's been treated like dirt here.
Neverland is me, you know. It represents the totality of who I am. It really does. I love Neverland.
Neverland was once a paradise, from which an innocent black man was evicted by destructive police officers through evil accusations and house searches. Michael was Neverland. This connection should never have been severed. Neverland is still a beautiful piece on earth. It is still magical. But the magic of Neverland is no longer the same without Jackson.
I won't live there ever again. I'll visit Neverland. It's a house now, it's not a home anymore.
Every single A-lister had gone completely silent all this while, but went on to praise him when he died.
All these people are coming out of the woodwork now, trying to pretend that they loved him, they cared about him.
Yeah, I think only a few like Chris Tucker, Elizabeth Taylor, of course, are the only few that really, spoke out. Everybody else just remained silent. So it's sad.
And I happen to know, because I was in the inner sanctum preparing his defense, that many of these people refused to get involved at all when we needed them. There were a number of celebrities who've been on television professing their great love for him. I know when we approached them that they refused to cooperate. They didn't want to get involved.
Very few of his friends actually remained by his side during this period of his sheer pain.
Michael Jackson had a lot of people in his life who turned on him, betrayed him, manipulated him, used him, betrayed his confidences. It made him, in many ways, very lonely because he didn't know who to trust. In the middle of the trial, he would call Susan Yu, my law partner, and he would call her in the middle of the night, and he would call me then in the middle of the night, and he was crying, and he would say, you guys are doing so well, please don't let them pay you off. And I would say, Michael, what are you talking about? He said, I know they're going to offer you millions because they want me to go down, and they see that you're doing a great job, and Susan Yu is doing a great job, and they're going to pay you. I said, Michael, nobody's paying me a dime. This is not the kind of person I am. And I got the feeling he was so used to people betraying him. He was so used to, hoping that someone was his friend, and then suddenly they have their hand out, or they're trying to get a project out of him, or they're trying to get money from him. And, loneliness, unfortunately, was a major issue with Michael, because with all that fame and talent and fortune came all the profiteers and the people who were governed by greed and selfishness. And Chris Tucker and Macaulay Culkin, I will never forget, because these were two young entertainers, at the height of their fame. They had people around them telling them, don't get involved in that trial, don't help Michael Jackson, he's going down, your career's going to be tarnished. And they both said to me, whenever Michael needs us, we're going to be there. We don't care what anybody advises us to do. Agents advising them, don't get involved. And they didn't care what they said. They were going to help Michael, and they wanted the truth to come out. But you only find out when you're in trouble who your friends really are.
Facts.
And Michael was devastated about a number of people who just were not there to help him in the way he expected.
To me, he was the loneliest soul on earth. He knew he was going to be smeared by half of the people in his life, if not more. He knew it. And here he was sitting alone in that SUV. I'll never forget his face. And I wanted to cry, because no matter how many people you think love Michael, he was alone there, and he was facing what could have been something that would have killed him.